Goldoni, Director of ResearchHub Foundation.
Hello everyone, Sylvie. So yeah, I'll take 20 minutes today to talk about ResearchHub. I'll briefly go over what is the problem we're trying to solve, and then I'll basically show you what we've built. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to take them at the end of the talk. So this is me. I'm still a PhD researcher, so almost done, but still in the research process. So again, I felt that, as I said in the keynote, I felt many of the pain points on myself. That's what got me to DeSci. Then 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago, I got into ResearchHub, and basically that changed everything for me. I really got full time into DeSci. So I wanted to show you what normally is the flow of a researcher during his journey in publishing a paper. What happens is normally you spend a lot of time trying to get fundings from funding bodies. Once you get funding, which can take a lot of time, you then perform experiments with the funding that you receive. That also takes a lot of time. And once you have performed your experiments, then you probably want to publish it. And that's where you have some more time spent in trying to publish your paper or journal. So there's, as you can see here, several points in time. And as you'll see later, I'll touch on the later part. But from getting funding to getting your paper published, it can take up to 4 years. Then let's talk about money. Again, there's a funding element, which obviously depends on who you get funding from. Can be small grants, can be big grants from funding agencies. But then again, once you have received the funding and you've performed the research, so you spent that money on the research, there's some additional money that you need to spend to get your papers published. And that's the up to $12,000 that you see there, because depending on the journal, you have some APC, so article processing fees, that you have to pay as an author, because most of the journals now are open access, so requiring authors to pay, not the reader, to get your paper published. So this is the journey. I'll come back later. I now want to emphasize what are some of the issues that are found in the traditional systems, traditional academia. Basically, the idea is that you need to publish to climb up the ladder and get your position as a full-time professor at a university. In order to do that, you basically have to publish a lot. So maximize publications, and you need to get cited a lot. So you need to publish something that is interesting for people so that they will cite you, they will get your metrics to be better, and that will get you basically a good position in academia. That creates perverse incentives, because basically maximizing publications means that you basically are renouncing to quality to publish a lot, so quantity over quality. And maximizing citations means that you basically are trying to publish something that is not optimized to be good science, but is optimized to be something that is cited a lot. And so you can get into, as I said before in the keynote, to fraud, so manipulating data just to get something interesting for people to be published, or having the so-called p-hacking, so basically manipulating the way you use statistics to basically bend some hypotheses that you have in your research to basically publish something that makes sense for the publisher, not for the research that you actually conducted. Another problem that scientific research has is the job market. So when you get into academia, most of the people that get into academia actually want to be professors. So it is the case for many of these young students that they want to spend some time in research, get a PhD, maybe get a postdoc, and then get a professorship position. But unfortunately, less than 2% of PhDs are only able to get that full-time professorship position. So it's a really competitive market. And that exacerbates the problem that I was telling you about before, where you have to publish a lot. The job market is also really tough for academic positions. And so that incentivizes even more the publication and the citation problem. And then we have the reproducibility crisis. So when you're trying to publish something that is really cool, has like you're trying to publish something that's innovative, and it gets you a paper in Nature. It is the case that if you're trying to do something really hard and it works one time, you don't really bother trying to replicate it 10 or 20 times to make sure that what you actually did was, what you actually reported in your paper was truthful, was not just like out of a one single situation. You just publish it. You publish it because it's a good piece of research. It's a cool piece of research that could get you published into a top journal. And so that basically creates this reproducibility crisis where people don't really bother replicating experiments. They publish it as soon as they get it working one time. So this is basically what got us at ResearchHub thinking about the problems in academia and trying to find a solution for them. So our co-founder, Brian Armstrong, in 2019 published this blog post where basically he outlined the problems in academia. So it's a pretty lengthy blog post, but basically he talks about all the things that I just talked about. So competitive market, the publisher perish culture, the reproducibility crisis, and so on. So this is really what stemmed the idea of ResearchHub. And so you can see in the blog post, they actually updated the blog post saying, hey, this actually got launched into a company that was actually ResearchHub. So what is ResearchHub? ResearchHub is what I call the modern day preprint server, where you can publish articles and you can interact with your peers and you can collaborate on research. And in order to do that, we have created a tokenized system where you get rewarded for your contributions. And the idea here is basically that by changing the incentives in academia from publications to actually getting monetary rewards, we can accelerate the pace of science. This is how it looks like. It's a forum, so you can upload papers. You can see the papers on the homepage, and then you can perform several things on the paper. You can comment, you can leave comments, you can leave peer reviews, and you can share data with your peers, and you can also request services from them. So this is a homepage. The idea is that on ResearchHub you really want to create your scientific profile. So something that is not highlighted enough today is your contribution for the open science movement. And so what we decided to do, we just revamped our reputation algorithm. We now have this achievements that you see in the bottom left that tells you if you've been publishing a lot in open access, if you've been peer reviewing on ResearchHub, and so on, and really helps getting your reputation so that whenever you're requesting services and someone wants to actually request a service from you, they can see your reputation breaking down into the different disciplines. You can publish, you can write and publish on ResearchHub, so you can use it as a notebook whenever you're doing experiments in the lab. You can take notes on ResearchHub in your notebook, and whenever you're ready to publish them, you can format them in as you would do with a paper and publish them natively on ResearchHub. We don't ask you for thousands of dollars. We have a small fee. It's probably about a couple dollars, and you can publish directly on ResearchHub. And that work can also be cited through the traditional way, basically. Obviously, if you want to publish, you also need to take care of your references. So we have built a reference manager for you to organize your references as you're writing on ResearchHub. So this is another app that you can download, and allows you basically whenever you're writing in your notebook on Microsoft Word to organize your references, and you can see all your references in your profile on ResearchHub, organized by folders. As I was saying before, I think one really cool aspect of what we're building at ResearchHub is the bounty system that we've built. So the idea that you can attach a small bounty with ResearchCoin, our token, to request a service from other people. So this community member, Nick, for example, had a question. Basically, he was doing some data analysis, and he had a few questions about some data he was processing. And what he did, it was basically open up a question, like you would do on Quora, for example. But then he attached a bounty to it, like a $10 bounty, for someone to come in and basically reply to the question. It's a really simple example of something that can be done. It can be scaled to something much more complex, and I'll show that in a second. This is what we built with Hippocratic. So with Hippocrates, what we decided to do, what they wanted to do, is they wanted to do a survey, actually more like a literature review, of medical deserts. So they wanted to identify some populations, some regions in the world, that were affected by basically a lack of access to medicine. And so what they did is they got some RC on open market, so they bought some RC, they came to ResearchHub and they opened up Bounty for people to come in and prepare a literature review. This was actually a 2 months long, 3 months long project that was basically done jointly from with like Hippocrates and ResearchHub Foundation, because we had two team members that prepared this research that was just published in May, all in ResearchHub. So everything was like, the research was conducted by people on ResearchHub and published on our platform. You can also, in a similar way as you would do with a bounty, the idea is like where you can also crowdfund larger studies. So if you think as a bounty, if you think of a bounty as like a micro grant where I'm crowdfunding, an answer to a question, which is like $10, I can also crowdfund larger studies. And we have run a few of these examples. And so we've, for example, run some crowdfunding experiments with some BioDAOs, for example, with Athena DAO and some other BioDAOs in the DeSci ecosystem, where everything was funded on ResearchHub and will be published on ResearchHub out in the open. So that's the only prerequisite that we ask for people whenever we are funding them through ResearchHub, in addition to pre-registering the study. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with a pre-registration, but basically the idea is that to avoid changing your hypothesis, when you start a research, you have an hypothesis and you're like, okay, I want to test that A gives me B. But then when you're doing the research, it turns out that A doesn't give you B. And so you change your hypothesis to basically show that A actually gives you C, and that was your initial hypothesis. That's only to get you published, because otherwise you wouldn't get published with negative results. And so one way to fight this is pre-registrations. So before starting your research, you have to pre-register what you're going to do, the hypothesis you're going to test, the methods you're going to use, and so on. So that's one really good way to avoid any potential bias. So we ask you to pre-register your study and to publish it in the open on ResearchHub, and then you can get funded through our platform. Going back to the original journey that I showed you, I told you that I wanted to focus on that later part, which is because that relates to the publication process, which is costly. It costs up to tens of thousands of dollars, and the peer reviewers don't get any dollars for that. So basically the peer reviewers, they're the people doing the work of peer reviewing, don't get paid for that. The journals get all the profits from the authors that need to publish on their journal to get their research to be spread out in the open. And the time that it takes is a lot of time, because people don't want to work for free, and so journals are struggling to find peer reviewers that want to work for free to peer review the articles. And so it can take you up to 1 year to get your paper published, because again, they don't have enough peer reviewers. So what we decided to do on ResearchHub is test an hypothesis. Can we accelerate the time that it takes for you to get your paper peer reviewed by paying peer reviewers? Something that no one does in traditional academia. So we launched this incentivized peer review program where we pay $150 to anyone that comes to ResearchHub and leaves a peer review, a good quality peer review. This is how it looks like. The foundation opens a bounty of $150, and you have now 14 days to come in and leave a peer review on a preprint that has been posted on iArchive, Archive, ChemArchive, MedArchive, and so on, any preprint server. You can come in, leave a peer review. You can use our inline commenting feature, so you can actually go to the PDF, highlight specific parts of the paper, and leave a comment specific to that part of the paper. And when the peer review is completed, we are going to pay you the bounty. And we've seen quite a bit of success in this. So basically, we started this back in August 2022. And we just saw a lot of interest lately, starting in May, where people started to review a lot of papers. Now we're basically getting more than 20 peer reviews a day, with 181 peer reviews in the last week, and we'll reduce that time that I told you can take up to months to get your paper peer-reviewed and published to just a few days. This is just the median. This is just the mean time for the bounty to be open to the actual peer review. So this shows definitely there's a let's call it fit from having people to be paid directly on ResearchHub to lead a peer review. So these are the key takeaways from today. I started by telling you what are the problems in academia. I wanted to focus on something specific, which is the peer review process, because I think it's one of the biggest problems that we're having right now, because it's taking us a lot of time to get your paper published, and it's getting the authors to spend a lot of money that shouldn't be spent to get their papers published. We were able to get 1,700 peer reviews just in 1 year, a bit more than a year, and we're projecting to have 3,000 peer reviews in 2024, which, by the way, is on the order of the same number of peer reviews that the top journals in science get, which is again, one of the most prestigious journals in academia, so we're pretty proud of that. But what we're most proud of is that we shortened the time that it takes to peer review to basically 4 days, and we paid out already more than $250,000 to our peer reviewers through the program that we just launched last year. I think it's important to put a name to a face, so I really want to show the work that has been done by the ResearchHub team, so the 2 co-founders and our lead developer, Kobe, along with 2 more developers and our chief of staff on the ResearchHub Incorporated side. And on the foundation side, again, we have Patrick and Brian on the board, along with me and Jeffrey, and another 15 people from our team. They're really trying to help spreading the word about DeSci and trying to make science happen faster as per our mission. If you want to get involved, if you want to learn more, there's a few links for you to check out. And again, really happy to have you here, and happy to take any questions if you have. Thank you.